So it's just a little after 6:30. We appreciate your patience and allowing us to get set up. But again, I'm Scott Hildebrand, and I just want to thank you all for being here. As you recall, last March, we started this process to a smaller room with about as many people that had a vision for Pine City. What do they want to see Pine City accomplish? What voice do you want to have in Pine City? You know, what is your long-term vision for some projects that our community, our staff can work for and accomplish? And, you know, we really appreciated the past several weeks that you put into this process. We appreciated the ability that you've had to meet with individuals one-on-one and as small groups and come up with some really cool ideas. And from March to this evening, we have the culmination of those ideas. So we're excited for that, and as the city staff, we thank you for that. Again, city staff for the most part has stayed out of this. City council has also. I've appreciated Mike Gator. He's been a valuable resource for the city, and kind of helping to organize this group and help work with you and get you all the information that you need. But the whole idea behind this process, as we work on our comprehensive plan and we work on strategic planning for the future, is what ideas do you have? And then not just the ideas, what is your solution to help us as city staff achieve those ideas? And, you know, I think Todd and Mike have worked to help you through that process. Today, we have several council members present to hear your suggestions. And now it's the other side of the puzzle. So you're coming forward to give us your ideas, but the only value of this ultimate project is for city council, for city staff now to come up with an idea for how can we achieve some of these goals. We're never going to achieve all of them, but what are some of these goals that we can achieve as a city to help make Pine City better? So 3 years from now, 5 years from now, when we do this process again, you're going to say, man, I want to be part of that. I want to bring my friends to be part of this, because the city actually listens to me. The city actually works for me. We're not just ultimately city staff, we're not just the city council. They work for me as a citizen. They listen to my recommendations. They strove to, you know, invest in tax dollars, to invest in some other projects, and actually accomplish some goals that makes Pine City the city that you're passionate about, the city that you live in or near. But so again, we thank you all for being here, and we're anxious to hear your suggestions. But as we come into the coming months, the coming weeks, the coming years, step back, come to our office, come to Mike's office, come to my office, sit down and talk to me. We're hoping to establish an additional kind of committee, an executive committee of sort that will help advise us on which projects are prioritized. Our city council, you brought up this morning, you know, let's have a special meeting. Let's start talking about what our priorities are. You know, we're going to be at the CAP meeting, we're going to hear some suggestions. What are our priorities? Where do we want to spend money? So it's going to be that partnership. You know, how does the council work with you, work for you, and ultimately accomplish some of these goals? And again, I hope you all enjoy this evening. I hope you all continue to work together. Don't be strangers. Again, stop by, talk to Mike, stop by talk to myself at City Hall. But we do. We deeply and sincerely appreciate your participation in this program. From March until now, it's been a long process. But we appreciate all the work that you've done, and hopefully we can work to accomplish, you know, again, maybe not all the goals, but at least some of the goals, and show that what you did had value and benefits Pine City. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Scott. I'm Mike Gaynor, your Community Development Director. It's been a great honor working with this group, watching them come together since our first meeting back in March and create these plans as a team. We can't thank them enough. And I'm looking forward to working for them and with them and hopefully with many of you to help develop the ideas you're going to hear about tonight. So these ideas are going to be incorporated into our upcoming comprehensive plan update. But what I've always been most excited about is the action part of this community action plan. Real things are going to come out of the presentations you see tonight. Out in the hall, there are sign-up sheets, and I urge any of you who haven't signed up yet to please put your name in there and tell us what projects you're most interested in so you can get involved. After our open house on last Monday, I was talking with a friend who's been in town a long time. and seen plans come and go. She came to me afterward and said, "This feels different. I'm amazed at the passion. There's been nothing like this in the past. The future of Pine City is riveting." I agree. These people, your friends and neighbors, something special is happening here, and it's because of them. So with that, I'd like to introduce the man responsible for inventing and guiding this process, President of Community Connections, Mr. Todd Streeter.
I do wish I was taller. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Mike, for your introductory comments. We appreciate that. And good evening, and thank you for coming here this evening. Before we get started into the presentation, I do have some opening comments. And first of all, I do want to thank the Pine City Council for this opportunity to bring this process to your city and community, and to have the great pleasure of working with everyone for the last 4.5 months. It's always very exciting for me because I know the potential all communities have to do great things for their communities, but I know when we sat in that room in March in the auditorium, I don't know if you knew that you had this capacity to do great things for your community. So it's always exciting for me to see this all come about. Before we get going, I do want to thank Patrick Schaffer-Decker. Did I get that right, Patrick? Thank you for utilizing the Snake River Fur Post for our meetings. We held them every 2 weeks. Great facility. We appreciate that, and we thank you for that. Also like to thank the Pine Technical and Community College for sponsoring our kickoff meeting that took place in March. We appreciate that as well. Before we start the presentation, I just want to take a moment to give you some background on the Community Action Plan project. Unlike traditional methods, this is a true bottom-up process where the community actually drives the project. No city officials, no professional planners, no staff were involved in creating the CAP committee recommendations that are being presented tonight. It is strictly the work from all of the volunteers who've been committed throughout this process. You will see tonight is work the committee members have researched and oftentimes reached out to third parties to gain greater insights into their concepts that they've been developing. The committee then began to focus on a number of recommended concepts in preparation for this evening. These recommendations will be incorporated into the city's comprehensive plan update for ongoing consideration for the next 10 to 15 years. Ultimately, the vision for the future of Pine City has been created by this group of dedicated community volunteers, and we appreciate everyone's hard work. Just to recap a little bit here, we did start with a kickoff meeting in March. We had about 55 people that attended. We had about 45 people that signed up to be on this committee. We started meeting in April. We're meeting every 2 weeks at the Fur Post. And these committees were busy working on their brainstorming initially and then refining their ideas. We broke them into 6 different subcommittees, and you'll be seeing and hearing from what their recommendations are tonight. And these subcommittees are actually representative of major components that are contained within the comprehensive plan. So it's very critical elements of what everyone's been working on here. So let's take a moment here and talk about the recommendations and their impacts on the city and the community. For any community to know where it's going, it must first have a vision. What's a vision? Well, it's a set of ideas. It's what you want to strive for. It's what you want to work towards together as a community. The vision's purpose is to set the bar much higher than what is currently available. The vision is also a catalyst for what was not just the past was about, but also what the future can become. The vision as laid out by the CAP committee is now the pivot point for Pine City. The new beginning and a bright, shining future where all members of this community can play an indispensable role to bring about incremental change? And where do you see Pine City 10, 15, 20 years from now? That was the question the CAP committee members set out to answer. If the first question people ask themselves when they see these recommendations is, how much will it cost? They have completely missed the intention and the importance of vision, having a vision. The committee was not really tasked to determine the cost of these recommendations, nor should they have been. It just wouldn't be enough time in this process to do that. Their objective was to paint a picture of what Pine City could be. That said, a number of committees were able to provide financial data that serves as information that must still be researched and assessed in greater detail. Many of these recommendations are low in cost, but high in collaboration, and that's a good thing. And yes, some of these recommendations will require more community discussion and evaluation. But these are not taxpayer propositions. They are community projects that everyone in the community can support and create and even fund. How can the community rally around an idea it wants to support? We answered that question when we had Nancy Mock, a member of the Greater Pine Area Endowment, come and talk to the committee on how local foundations can become a catalyst for community support, involvement, and funding. There is a saying, good ideas attract funding, and that is true. A good foundation is a very important, a community foundation is a very important tool that allows the community to support a project and help it through the process and support much of its funding requirements along with state and federal grants. When you view these recommendations that the committee has created for Pine City, it is more helpful to view them as projects the entire city can become engaged to help make them a reality over time. Think of tonight as the start of Pine City's future. Tonight is the beginning of an ever-evolving process to usher these recommendations and many others to follow to build a successful and vibrant community you'll want to create for decades to come. At the conclusion of this presentation, we'll have a short Q&A. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have, and these committee members will be available to provide answers to your questions on the specific topics that they have presented. And then we'll also be back out at those common areas out there at the tables to discuss more, so please go to any subcommittee's table and ask them more direct questions if you'd like more information. If you're interested in supporting a particular project, please leave your name and contact information in that committee, and we will follow up with you shortly. Just a few comments on next steps. This is the completion, tonight's kind of like graduation day for everybody associated with this project. But after that, we will be having another opportunity for the community to get engaged, and that will be in two different forms, potentially. First, it would be the formation of an executive committee. This committee may not be as large as the CAP committee, but it would be formed with people who are dedicated to seeing these recommendations through. It would be more strategic in form, more kind of how does the rubber meet the road, and how do we go from point A to point B, C, and beyond. I don't know if it'd necessarily be meeting every 2 weeks, but it would require some commitment, of course, and it would be wonderful if people were able to apply some resources professionally and personally to helping underwrite or make these projects potentially viable. So it still will be a committee that will be focused on action. The other opportunity that might exist is the city chooses to create a task force. And a task force in this instance would be a situation where one of the projects merits a lot more deep dive into more higher level research maybe some discussions with outside groups or consultants. And this task force would then report back to the City Council directly and help learn more about the opportunities that the city wants to focus on. So that's yet another opportunity that may exist in the very near future. If you're interested in participating on an executive committee or potential task force, please contact Scott or Mike, and they will be happy, more than happy, to include you in upcoming plans. With all that being said, we can start the presentation of our subcommittees. And our first subcommittee is creating community. Creating community in planning terms is land use and housing. And this group is dedicated to assisting city staff in updating the overall geographical planning and housing needs to meet new opportunities, emerging demands, anticipated growth, and future land uses. And to kick it all off is Ryan Reisendorfer, who will present the information.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate that. First order of business, I'm just a presenter, but if the rest of the committee could stand and be recognized, please, I'd appreciate it. Great group of people, and I have to say one of the biggest benefits from being on this committee was getting to know new people in Pine City, so it was really a bonus from that standpoint. So, as Todd mentioned, we're all about housing and land use. I would even extend land use to water use, because you'll hear from other groups tonight that there are plans to try and take more advantage of the waterways that we have in the area. So it's all about natural resources too. All the groups started out with a quote. This particular one is from Jane Jacobson, and I'm assuming many people may not have heard of Jane. She is an urban planner and an author, or was. She passed away a number of years ago, and she was very involved in the renewal of New York City, and she had very strong feelings about making sure that your renewal process involved the citizens, because what you might consider a slum might be considered someone's castle, and before you go start tearing things down, you should really understand the needs of the people in the area before you start making changes. So her quote basically says, for those communities that don't get involved in improving their situation, they're basically going to die on the vine. And for those that are lively and diverse and intense, they usually find a way to regenerate themselves and continue to regenerate themselves over time. Our vision statement, in short, is housing is a journey of need. From the first-time homeowner to the empty nester, our housing needs evolve based on our life, our work, and our families. Our guiding principles, as you see there, we have a number of them, but we want to ensure there's a range of housing that's available in the community. We want to create attractive places with a strong sense of place. Have effective development practices that meet the needs of the residents. Offer a variety of building designs that strengthen the existing community while creating usable and walkable neighborhoods. Affordable housing, and we pretty much have a two-pronged approach to our committee. One is affordable housing. Affordable housing is the goal. It was very clear in our group as we discussed the needs of Pine City that affordable housing in a variety of different offerings would be very important to the community. So it requires active community planning and additional research and funding opportunities. We had the opportunity to talk to a number of people, and things like this aren't always things that have to be funded by the city themselves. There are funding opportunities out there that can help subsidize programs to be able to deliver more affordable housing to the community. We want to be able to create a spark for more accessibility and feasibility into the future. And we want to offer multi-generational housing with more downtown living options and what we call small developments or small house developments. So speaking of small houses, here's an example of a small house. It's about a 900 square foot home. The pink truck planter is optional, but the rest of the house is the primary part of it. But they're cool little things you never would have thought about a 900 square foot house in this kind of design until you started looking at it. And talking to people who have been in this area longer than I have, and there's a number of small lots, and you wonder what can we do with small lots? Well, we can put small houses on small lots. So there's being creative on how we take advantage of the space that's available in the city. Looking at income-based townhouses and single-level living, so as people, provide opportunities for people to age in their home without having to move out because they live in a multi-level, house. And then income-based housing, there's some very successful stories, I think, in North Branch. I want to say Cambridge, too, was another area that some of the committee visited where they have affordable housing that's based on income. And I think the other cool thing is you look at some of this and you look at the color they bring into some of these places. You don't have to have a drab looking place to do this. You can still make it an inviting place for people to live and a place that makes it for a more exciting neighborhood. Other housing options, I mentioned already, we want to utilize any small unbuildable, typically what would be unbuildable lots in town and be creative with the use of those. I have an example here in a couple of slides about utilizing Main Street lots to build multi-use complexes that would be a combination of both retail and housing. And then we need to do more research on financing and funding for participating in or being able to offer affordable housing. So here's an example actually from Elk River of a multi-use, multi-level complex. The upstairs, the upper two levels are apartments. The bottom level is retail. I think the cool thing about these designs, and you may have seen them in a number of cities, is they bring them in and they put them into their downtown area and they try to build them so they look like the buildings that are in the downtown area now. So they're new, but they look like they've aged with all the other buildings. And so it's a great concept in regards to revitalizing your downtown. If you want a healthy downtown, the more people you can have living in the downtown area, the healthier your downtown will be. Because they'll be out, they'll be active, and they'll explore what's going on in their downtown. Changing directions a little bit, or the second prong on what we were talking about, is you'll hear from other committees tonight about using our waterways more, creating more paths, bike trails, things of that nature to get people more active. In doing that, we believe that it's important that we have a broader natural resource stewardship. You want to call it commission, committee, whatever you want to call it. But right now, we believe that we have a lot of municipalities that have their hand in our natural resources, but none of them, I think, get together and really talk as a group about what's best as a whole. And so having something that comes together with all representatives, including the lake associations, because they are actively trying to manage some of the waterways themselves, I think would really help in an overall process. So basically the purpose would be that ensuring that our lakes and rivers are available to all and have representatives from all the municipalities, lake associations there. We want to ensure the vitality of the lakes and rivers. We want the groups that work together to acquire funding to ensure water quality, fisheries, and the accessibility of the waterways is available to everyone. And we want to examine the impact on development on the natural resources to make sure that things are well thought out. And just examples where, at one point on Cross Lake, there was talk of a 70-unit condominium being built on the south end of the lake, and on the other end of the lake, there was a camping or a campground that was going to be built. And you're going to bring a lot of people onto the lake, which is great, but what's the impact, and what's it going to do? Is it going to improve the lake, or are we putting things in place to help us with that? So, I'm not for or against the development. I just think it just needs to be planned better through it all. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Good job. Our next committee is Economic Prosperity, and its focus was to identify concepts and strategies the city can take to create an economic balance between serving the various businesses, industries, and employment opportunities residents seek while providing economic benefits to the community at large. And to present this is Mr. Bob Thompson.
Good evening. Before we start, I'd like to ask the subcommittee members that worked on this with me to stand. Give you a couple here. The quote that I have up here I thought was kind of appropriate. Former Mayor Jane Robbins, I had an opportunity to sit down with her after the CAP program kicked off in March, and I was just visiting with her, sharing with her kind of what the concept of the CAP program was, and I asked her about economic prosperity and how that should be approached, and she kind of looked at me and she said, jobs drive economic prosperity, and in a kind of a slow voice, but you know, she's still got her faculties, and we're so blessed to have her yet. We have a vision statement. I'm not going to read the entire vision statement, but I will tell you that, you know, this is what helped us think through all of the things that we were looking at from an economic standpoint for our community. We also have some guiding principles, and we want to grow from within and boost trade and invest in people and skills in our community. Some of the ideas that we talked a lot about for this project was expanding our retail, developing our workforce, grocery co-ops, hotel, water and recreation. We even spent a fair amount of time early on talking about our recycling program in the community and how we could leverage that for economic value. The hotel has been a talk and a subject for a long time in our community, and it's obviously a need. Everyone, I think, pretty much agrees with that. Some of the early survey data that was done by the committee certainly supports that. One of the things that we agreed as a committee, it needs to be, or there needs to be shovel-ready site for it. Hotel development doesn't occur when you have to make investment in the ground. Our research as a group really shifted a little bit in the middle of the 4-month span there, and started looking at a grocery store as a possible real value for our community. And that was a strong point in the early surveys that we looked at, that a lot of people said, sure would be nice to have a grocery store in our community again. So looking at what's available for space in our community without thinking about building buildings and stuff, Evergreen Square has some potential space. It was the space that Pomida had many years ago, or a few years ago. There's about 33,000 square feet open in that building on the south side. It's dock accessible. It's, you know, it would work for a grocery store. It would work for a lot of other things too, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. So our research was to look at different ways that groceries are sold in communities. We looked at, farmers markets and co-ops, and what is Hy-Vee doing? What is Aldi's doing? Just looked at what the differences are and the different ways of bringing those services to a community. I mentioned the Evergreen Square property. early in our research, we had an opportunity to sit down with the owner of Evergreen Square, and at that meeting, Randy Fett, invited his real estate broker that's representing his property here in Pine City, as well as other places around Minnesota that he operates in, and we had a chance to hear straight from her how she viewed Pine City for expanded retail and particularly for grocery operations. And at that meeting, we learned something that was kind of interesting. They had already engaged with Aldi's prior to the pandemic and actually had a draft agreement in place that for whatever reason, probably some of it had to do with the pandemic, was kind of put on the back shelf. But they were very interested in learning that this committee, our committee, was actually pursuing that opportunity again, and agreed that or that they would help us if they could with contacts with grocery stores, and particularly with Aldi's. One of the outcomes from that meeting that we were pleasantly surprised and pleased with was a list. This list here is of data that's basically Pine City data developed independently by the real estate brokerage firm that works with Evergreen Square. And I like the data because it's easy to understand. It's presented in a 1, 3, and 5 mile radius around Pine City, so you can really look at it and say, yeah, I agree, that makes sense. This is a picture of an Aldi store. They all look pretty much alike. They typically like to come in to a community or an area and go into an existing facility and then do a build out. So stores look alike, but they are doing a lot of this. They are the largest or the fastest growing grocery in the United States. So certainly would be a candidate for us if there was an opportunity. This is an article that I ran across in IF Magazine, and I also saw a nice piece in the Star Tribune about this gentleman in western Minnesota, him and his wife living in a small town. I think it's Evansville on the west side of the state. Anyway, they didn't have a grocery store in their little town. I don't know if it closed. I can't remember if it closed or if they just didn't have one in the little town. But anyway, they got tired of traveling to buy groceries, and so they decided to create a business model that would service that community. But basically, they created a self-service grocery store where you could buy a membership and have an app on your phone for access to the store 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 3 days a week, according to the article, 3 days a week, the owner and his wife are in the store stocking shelves and doing the normal things that a grocery manager would have to do. But in IF Magazine article, the reviews from community members were very positive, and I thought it was an interesting solution. This is a Teal's Market. It's a grocery chain here with a long history in Minnesota. An interesting family history as well. The closest store to us is in Isle, Minnesota, and Teddy and I have shopped there many times when we were hanging around in Vineland Bay, and it's a well-run operation and always treated everybody really special there. This is a typical high-density grocery store in downtown St. Paul. You can kind of see that take the easy way here with the captive audience, but they do well in those situations too. This is a co-op grocery in St. Paul at Mississippi Market. Maybe some of you have heard of them. Been very successful. They're kind of located right between St. Paul and Minneapolis, just south of I-94 on Dale Street. Kind of a tough neighborhood, but a very successful co-op grocery store. And of course, the St. Paul Farmers Market, we're all aware of that. That's a great opportunity for Pine City and for our community to expand our farmers market and take in a larger area of vendors. You know, the St. Paul farmers market, people come from all over the state and maybe even out of state to participate in that. One thing we wanted to mention tonight is that there are retailers that are looking for expansion in our region, in the outer ring from the North Metro. And we know from our data that these three, Northern Tool, Harbor Freight, and Tractor Supply, have all looked at Pine City and they rate us pretty favorable for expansion. So grocery co-ops are a resource that communities like ours can certainly value and promote. Any time that you get a chance to go to a co-op grocery store, just observe some of the things that go on there. It's pretty interesting. So our recommendation is kind of my last slide here, but I just want to touch on this, that we think that the hotel idea is still a viable idea for our community. We think that it needs to be in a prime location, and so our recommendation is to work on relocating the DOT facility on Highway 324. We're suggesting to the industrial park, but we don't really have, you know, that could be decided. But we think that spot where the Minnesota DOT garage and maintenance station is prime property in our community. And if there was any way that we could find to do a land swap or a site swap, and move that facility so that we could then market that site for hotel development. And here's a picture of a hotel. We visited with some hotel management people in the Duluth-Cloquet area, and we shot these pictures. But a hotel here would be a great resource for our community.
Thank you, Bob. Nice work on all of those opportunities. We appreciate that. Our next committee is Downtown Revitalization, also under the heading of Economic Development. And it was tasked to create wide-ranging ideas that will rejuvenate, revigorate Pine City's Main Street as a place for community to gather day and night and 7 days a week. And to present this information is Jody Kalitsky and Margot Rothenbacher.
Good evening. I'm Margot Rothenbacher. And I'm Jody Klipsky. We also have with us Ken Bonhart, Ryan Kelly, and Judy Schleen. And we are Downtown Revitalization. There we go. We had two quotes. The first one, between every two pines is a doorway to a new world, which is so applicable to Pine City. The other one's from Marin has so much to offer. We just need to update it a little bit and give it wings.
What we'd like to do is create some common spaces that have a lot of vitality and color, and just to make things safe for downtown, for our community, and for any folks that are coming in to visit Pine City.
Oops. We have 7 ideas, and we're going to go through each one of them. The first one is the benches, and Bob alluded to the TRACS program. That's a program run through the Lions, the Lady Lions, and businesses here in Pine City, and they collect the plastic, and we take it to the TRAC program, we haul it up to Sandstone, and after so much plastic, we get these chairs. They're by the yard chairs, and we get them for free for doing that. What we like to do is get these chairs and get them around town so people have places to sit, like outside Seltzers or outside Moms. And we'd love to have these shops and these cafes decorate them and put flowers around them to bring some light and vibrance to our town. The other thing we have is a rich history in Pine City. And we also are very blessed with a wonderful Pine City Historical Society. The society has created, these bulletin sheets. There's one for almost every store in town. So for Seltzers, for example, it tells the history of the store. It tells what's happened there, some highlights. It has a QR code. You can click on that with your phone. You can get more information. It'll even talk to you and read it for you. It's absolutely fascinating. And what we would like to do is build on that. We'd like to create a walking path through our town, through Pine City, so that people could stop at each building. They can take time and read the information, which is really fascinating, on these bulletins and learn about our city and our history.
Another thing that we'd like to do is bring in hanging plants, baskets that could go on the light post through 61 through downtown and by Robinson Park. Now we've taken a drive through Cambridge and Graham and North Branch, and when you take a drive through those towns, those colors of those flowers are just so vibrant, and it's just so inviting to come into town. And so we just really like them, and
It just brightens up our town. Okay, Bob, I'm going to get on that Min project, that Min building. Can't stand it. You come off the freeway, and it feels like the first thing you see is this big industrial type thing. And you don't realize that Pine City is just down and around the corner. One of the things that we would like to do, if we can't be moved, we would love to put up a large fence, and on that fence, we would like to have like a mural. And on that mural, point people or direct people to downtown. Maybe even putting on there some of the fascinating things about our Pine City Square and the wonderful restaurants and hardware stores and everything else we have to offer there. I think sometimes people get off the freeway, they see that and they stop. They don't realize that Pine City is here and that we have a lot to offer. Sorry, Jody.
you're skipping me. Go back one more. Go. There we go. We have wayfinding signs already in town. We have a couple of them, one on the south end and one on the north end of town that point you in the direction of downtown and some of the public things that you can do down there. However, they're not very big. And you try to read them, but you go super fast by them and you can't really read and see what they are. So we'd like to propose getting bigger signs and also public parking. We know that we can park around Robinson Park, but there's other places that we can park, so we'd like some parking signs down there too. And you can see that little archway there. That'd be kind of pretty to do in our downtown area too by Robinson Park. It's just kind of inviting.
Another thing we talked about with signs was looking at our, where we have our, right in the middle of Robinson Park, painting them and bringing it up to speed. That little rhododendron there is so cute, and we have so many concerts there, but it'd be nice to bring it up and maybe even put a mural on that.
Yeah, just to add some more color to it.
Finally, we use our park so much, and we're using it more and more every year. We have the art fair there, we have Pine City activities, Park and Rec. We also have every Friday night art in the park, and facilities are desperately needed. So our final recommendation is for proper facilities.
And now we get to building facades. Some of our local businesses have done a really great job with some of their facades, and I know that it continues to evolve with some of the new businesses popping up. But you can see from these little towns here, the color and the vibrant activities that are going on. I just think that brings in, it attracts people to the community and makes it more vibrant. Places like 220 has done a really great job, the Pine City Art Center, the bookstore. I mean, we're starting to evolve here, but I think we could even do more with our facade on our buildings.
We thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you. All right, our next committee is community connectivity, and in engineering planning terms, it is transportation and infrastructure. Now you can understand why we didn't use the terms that are used by planners, because no one really gets excited about joining a committee that is about transportation and infrastructure. But when you consider about what those mean and represent within a community, it is really about creating connectivity. And the focus of this group was to assess and identify opportunities to enhance the various modes of transportation methods and the future needs supporting an active and well-connected community. And to present first will be Lori Swanson and then Jim Sloan.
Hello everyone, I'm Lori Swanson, and obviously this is Jim, but I'd also like the rest of our committee members to stand this evening if they would. Thank you. So the quote that we picked for our community connectivity was, "Alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much." And the vision that we chose was we wanted to provide safe and convenient connections, which included trails and sidewalks throughout Pine City, where walking and bicycling are a way of life. And as you can see here on this slide, we have some pictures of just some of the things that would bring together the trails with bicycling. You could do some walking down to our waterways. We talked about that, or bicycling. And then Jim will talk a little bit more about what we call some bump outs that we could have for safer pedestrian walking on roadways. And then also just some safer sidewalks too around the community. One of the other pieces we were tasked with were our having to come up with some of our sayings that the guiding principles that supported our vision. And so we picked 5 of them, and really our guiding principles focused on keeping our community safe for our walkers, why they're connecting to a lot of our community destinations that are popular around our communities, and also a lot of our parks and trails, so we can get there as well. And then also just a continuous loop throughout our community from one end to the other. And then we want all people to be able to do this, from as young as 1 to 101, and maybe we have even older ones here in this community. So next, Jim's going to actually go through the different proposed trails and walkways that we have come up with, and then he'll share some of the bump outs, they're called, and he can explain some of those as well, and just some of the areas of access down to our waterways too within the city.
Thanks, Lori. Before I start speaking on the actual proposed segments to the trail/sidewalks that we're proposing, I need to recognize the city has done an excellent job to try to continue building sidewalks and providing for pedestrians and connection for pedestrians and bicycles in the community. And actually about 60% of the previous comprehensive plan goals have been completed. So I think that's an excellent indication of what potential we've got with these different committees this year. Also, the county is adding trails. Specifically, many of you have heard of the trail that will go into place on Cross Lake Road. It's on the east side of the Cross Lake Road. It'll go from Cross Lake Reserve at the south end of the lake up to the bridge. That'll be under construction next year and be completed in 2024. And I'm also anticipating more trails in the county as the county is joining the Blue Zones project and the active lifestyle that promotes. Our committee tried to do things that, first of all, connected existing trails, connected important places, and finally made loops within the community. First of all, a map that'll get you oriented a little bit in terms of where we're at. I've got a series of maps that will show you our different segments. The red line here on the left side is I-35. Here's Cross Lake, the downtown area here, and so on. In green, this is the current path from Cross Lake Reserve around to where Carpet Unlimited used to be. The green down here is the trail behind the high school. To give you some orientation, I have a few pictures and then the map of the segment. This first segment would go from the end of the Cross Lake Reserve Trail to the trail behind the high school. This is where it would start there, the north entrance to Pine Tech. This is the end of the trail behind the high school, behind the softball field. So, again, Cross Lake Reserve, here's our primary proposal along the railroad tracks. Here's the entrance to Pine Tech. Trailers would have to be moved, or purchased land would have to be obtained there, and then connecting with the existing trail. If that doesn't work, our other option is to take 4th Street and actually would bump through and then end up at the parking lot by the softball fields. So proposal number 1. Excuse me. Where am I at? This is The second one is 8th Street and Wilcox. 8th Street goes along the west side of the elementary school. Here's the elementary school. This is looking at 8th Street. The hockey arena would be over in this area, so looking down 8th Street, and would end up on 61 at the highway crossing that exists. So the suggestion is from 2nd Avenue all the way along 8th Street, and then this is Wilcox, making that connection. No sidewalk on all of this stretch here, and it's a main route to the elementary school. And if you've been to the elementary school at the end of the day, parked cars, parents picking up students, there's not a lot of room to get through. The next one, the excellent trail that goes from Holiday back toward town. So this is the stretch I'm talking about, but we want to add sidewalk on the north side of Hillside Avenue. So along this way, it's a busy intersection, it's hard to get across, and you get up to 8th Street here, you got to cross back over. So I'm suggesting keep the sidewalk or add a sidewalk on the north side here. The next one is connecting with the entrance to Pine and Tech, so along Railroad Avenue. So here we go again with Cross Lake Preserve Trail. So it goes along Railroad Avenue and then eventually gets to Robinson Park. The next one is a loop on 2nd Avenue, 10th Street, and 8th Avenue. So this is 2nd Avenue from Robinson Park, the liquor store. 10th Street is along the cemetery, and then 8th Avenue, comes back, Cabina Coffee, the garage, and back to Pine and Tech. So, from Robinson Park, 2nd Avenue, 10th Street, 8th Avenue, you begin to see some of the connections that are made as we complete these. And here's 8th Avenue, no sidewalk, cars parked out in the street. You see the need for some alternative form of ability to get around. We really want to connect all the neighborhoods in the community. This is the one that will go out to Cross Lake. Cross Lake Reserve, Fawn Meadows, and then Courthouse on the opposite side. We're suggesting here a trail along 61. So down here would be the liquor store, and go along 61 out to Fawn Meadows, so we connect that neighborhood as well as the courthouse. The next one is 5th Avenue North, and this is just orienting you. This is the Legion, so we're suggesting a trail on northwest and northeast 5th Avenue. So here we're showing then along 5th Avenue, again connecting all the neighbors and the neighborhoods in the city. Jump ahead. So the next one, we're looking at connecting to the Fur Post, going through the wildlife area. So this would be the Holiday Station across the freeway bridge along the edge of the road. And this is just a rough idea, but it would come through someplace wind through the wildlife area. Yes, there's water in there, but I think we could bridge that and make a very interesting trail, and then eventually hook up with the fur posts, which would be located about this area. The next one that was a part of the original design team's proposal 10, 12 years ago is a bridge across the Snake River, 10th Street southwest to 10th Street northwest. A little dreamy. And the last one here is a loop on 4th Avenue, 14th Street, and then 1st Avenue Northwest. So this is to just get you started. This is looking on the north side of the cemetery. So I'm standing at 10th Street and 4th Avenue where this picture is taken. So here's the start of that on the north side of the cemetery. There's 14 streets, and there's several houses along this stretch here, close to the freeway. We're talking about attaching a bridge to the northbound lane of I-35, and then eventually back and connecting with First Avenue and Highway 61. One other thing that we felt was important to slow traffic and make it more pedestrian friendly was bump outs. So each of these little stick men represent places we've suggested bump outs. Like the example in the picture there, that's a temporary one. You see those pylons there that bump out. The traffic lanes are still free, but the pedestrians have a shorter distance in which they have to walk across. Here's a picture of downtown area, Robinson Park. You see the bump outs at several locations along there that shorten the distance across the street. And lastly, we're, I guess it's on this one, suggesting access to our water. Pedestrians really don't have a good way to do that, or very many spots. Each of these little anchors suggest small little docks or places that people can get down to the water and enjoy those types of things. Oops. And this final map shows in this gold color all the places we've suggested trails and how it connects to make the loops and get to important places. Thank you.
Our next committee to hear from is Quality of Life, which is Parks, Trails, and Recreation. And they have been charged with developing opportunities to enhance the active lifestyles of residents of all ages to enjoy. And we have Ms. Julie Samuelson presenting.
Our committee ended up getting, I think, some of the fun, more tangible things that we could dream about with parks, trails, and recreation. And so quality of life and all the fun things that Pine City currently offers and the dreams of what it could currently offer. Our team was wide and varied. So if anyone from the Quality of Life team, could you please stand up? Thank you so much. Our brainstorming was crazy wild, and it took a lot of work to hone things down, but this is what we came up with. First of all, our quote that our job is about improving the quality of life, not just delaying death, and we want to have fun. We want to enjoy life, and we want to help people enjoy life because life is hard. Our vision is to create a happy and healthy community where all can live, learn, and play being a high priority. We want to enrich the quality of life and strengthen a sense of community for the residents and visitors, for people of all ages, being healthy and active and stimulating the economy, protecting the environment, but also doing it in ways that make the community excited about their parks. So we kind of went to recreation, recreation, parks, and water access were the three ways that we looked at what Pine City already had and what we could do to improve it and dream. So starting with recreation, we looked at bike accessibility, and we looked at it in two different ways. One was to have donated bikes for kids to have to ride around to different places. Not every kid has a bike, and sometimes they just don't have their bike there. They're at the beach and they want to go to the ballpark. If there are bikes available, they could just get on a bike and go to the ballpark. Also having nice ride or pay bikes, because some tourists would rather have a pay bike. There's two different kinds of opportunities that are both needed in Pine City. And thinking about starting the rack locations where these bikes would be available at the beach, Leroy Samuelson Memorial Park, Robinson Park, and Voyager Park. So how do you get this done? One of the ways is through grants that would help buy and start the pay-as-you-go bikes. The other would be found bikes and donated bikes for kids. Every year, the city finds about 20 bikes in different places of usability, dropped and, just abandoned. And we thought to start with those bikes that are found bikes and those that might want to donate bikes and have those available in the racks for kids. And then just put a sticker on them that says City Bike. And, but we would need a community group to champion that refurbishing thing. That's nothing the city could take on, but it would be great for the city to provide and make sure the racks are available and then have people that enjoy tinkering with bikes have bikes available for kids. Also, we wanted to talk about parks and how can we maximize underdeveloped parks. And so there's two park areas that we were kind of looking at. One was near the Fawn Meadows development up here. Now, to get to this park, you can't go through Fawn Meadows. You have to drive down to the stoplight, go around the industrial park, and drive into the new area where the new water tower is. There's all kinds of land out there, and there's already kind of a beat-up Wheeler Trail that's kind of started some exploration in the area. And then we have Thomas Park, which is this little piece of land here on the north side of Snake River, which many of us didn't even know existed. And what could we do with that? So as we look at Fawn Meadows Park, the first thing we have to think about is what could be there. There's all kinds of rooms. So we looked at a nature-based interactive play. Whoops. There we go. Sorry. Play areas that don't look like parks, but look like boulders and things that kids want to jump on. All the things that moms tell your kids not to do, they'd be okay to do there. A dog park. Jane Robbins, our previous mayor, has talked for years about a dog park. And some archery possibilities for target shooting. And Fawn Meadows Park needs a contest for a new name. Because if you put Fawn Meadows Park in on your GPS, it's going to send you to the development. And I just showed you, you can't get there from the development. So they're stuck. So we need a contest to name it, but we need to develop it so they know what in the world they could possibly name it. So the nature-based interactive play areas are because to get there you have to go on a wood chip trail to get there. We're looking at wanting to groom the trails that way, have natural play areas and like little sandboxes that are made out of, leaky canoes and things like that are found nature objects. So it looks completely different than any playground any kid's ever been on. Also, we would like to do some silhouettes of animals that are at the proper size of the animal, and then kids can kind of go on scavenger hunts and see what those animals might be like. We've heard from people that like to geocache and things like that, and we think that would just kind of blossom from there. But the whole thing started is because there is a There's an existing bird observation deck here overlooking our wonderful sewage ponds. But they attract a lot of wildlife. And people built an observation deck to look at the wildlife. So this line here is an existing Wheeler Trail that's kind of beat up, but hey, it keeps the grass down. And we thought right in here, while people are observing the birds, you could have one of these interactive play areas so the kids could enjoy playing, because they want to watch birds for maybe 30 seconds. Also, help maintain that observation deck, and then it makes a loop around here, and maybe make another one of those play areas in the middle here. All of the old picnic tables that Robinson Park needed to upgrade because they were so beat up, they're already there around this loop. The city's already got them there. So we just want to develop it a little bit more, but do it in a way that isn't your typical, buy a playground and a kid thing. Money. We actually did some budgeting. So for the nature play areas, for both of them, you might need 2 small slides you can prop up on a log or something for them to slide down. And we want to get some silhouette animal cutouts. We need signage for the park so people can know what they are. And the found items for nature are free. We just have to haul them there. And a truckload of chip. Well, maybe 2 truckloads of wood chip. But your basic dump truckload of chip is about $450. So all in all, for under $40,000, we could get this park started. Now, it's not going to be handicap accessible, and it's not going to be mowed. It's just going to have trails through tall grass. But it's going to be a nature kind of park, a little different. Now, that park line right here is the start of those trails, and right here about is the new water tower. And you've just driven in here, the new facility to house the water tower necessities. We have this big area here that we think would fit a dog park really well. So that's where that would be. And then here we have shovel-ready sites. But until somebody wants to put the shovel in the ground, why can't we put archery in there in a non-permanent way? That if someone does buy it, we just pick it up and find a new site for it. As we look at the dog park, we're assuming that that's approximately what it would look like. You would have an area for large dogs and an area for small dogs, and then you would cut it in half and have a shade pavilion here that would share both sides. It'd be very basic. We figured we needed about 600 feet of chain link, but we know the city has some chain link rolled up from other projects that they took down. So once we get really serious about this, then we can start working with grants and say, the city has this much to offer, what could you offer us? The shade pavilion, that'll cost about, $5,000. I don't know what the city would charge to get water to the site, because you definitely need water. And 2 waste removal stations at a minimum, because you have to have one on that side, maybe the big one on that side. And then the Lions benches, maybe we could get a couple of those, and then signage. So for under $20,000, we could actually put a dog park in, which is, that's kind of small potatoes for something we've been looking for a long time. And then the archery range, these are the types of portable covers for the targets that would keep the targets dry, but also if the shovel-ready site became available and someone wanted to develop the property, they're also very easy to move to another area. And then you need some kind of racks to hang the bows on also. So all in all together, working with Adrenaline Archery, we figured that it would be under $6,000 to have an archery range. So these are tangible and they're grant writable, and I'm excited to want to develop whatever Fond Meadows Park needs to be renamed. Thomas Park is this interesting little piece of land that has river access and a little bitty access right here to First Avenue, which is the access is more wooded than it is not. But what we're thinking about is, what if we had like a primitive Snake River camping site that most people would access from the river? It would not have any bathrooms, it would not have any camping facilities. You would just bring your own tent and camp. We might have to have a garbage can, but we would love to have trails coming from the access here, maybe winding through the trees, but only clear this little area right here underneath the trees. Right in this area here, you can see the view from the river, so that there's enough room that you could do some primitive camping. It also borders this neat little canal, and we hear there's lots of cool turtles and fun things in there. And so we wouldn't want to do too much clearing there. We would want to keep that wild. Just clear right here and have these neat little trails in here and access here. Because of course, we're going to have to mow it to keep the brush down, because it's going to be a new trail kind of thing. So what will that take? Well, we're going to need a privacy fence, something like this, because there's a house right there. And I don't think they're going to want people walking past their yard. Maybe put a nice little gate there so that if they want to access it, they can. But we need a privacy fence there to separate out that access there. And we need to brush cut the nature trail. I don't know what that would cost. The benches, hopefully we can get a bench in there. Signage, because nobody knows where this place is. We would need signage on the riverside, and we would need signage on the street side on First Avenue. And of course, to maintain the trails, it would be very important that they're mowed regularly, because we're trying to keep brush down in a new area. We figured it would cost about $204 to keep that down. So we could really develop Thomas Park to be a quiet, bird-watching, primitive camping site for under 10 grand. Again, very doable with grants. The other part of quality of life is we were looking at water access. You heard about people wanting to have more docks and things. We thought the same thing. So the city already has some docks on the other side of the bridge, but there's not enough, and people wait a long time to get to the city docks so they can get into the city and do things. So we thought, well, what if we put 3 on this side, and then they can walk up across this main street, the bridge. We'd have to clear this brush out and put 3 docks right there, and that would make more improved for tourism. Plus, who wouldn't want to stop there and hang out at Voyager Park? The other place we're looking is at 3rd Avenue. 3rd Avenue is the site of where the old access in the winter for ice fishing was on Cross Lake. It's kind of grown up now. This is the picture, but now we'd have to clear these out. But with encouragement and collaboration with the county, we're wanting to get public access back onto Cross Lake for winter ice fishing. And if we're going to do that, we might as well put a floating dock in at the end for the summer, so that and a bathroom, of course, because once you get off the river, you need that right away. That we could have people moor their boats and they can run up to Village Inn or whatever, and it would be another place in the summer to enjoy more access to the waterways. We were wanting floating docks for all of these docks because we don't want rollers to go in and destroy spawning beds. So that's kind of our reason why we would go with the floating docks. What will that cost? Well, the docks themselves at Voyager Park will cost about 13 grand. And the 140-foot dock will be about 8 grand. Porta potty lease is about $100 a month, but the city's already taken a porta potty from somewhere else and put it in storage. So it's already budgeted for that porta potty. The brush you clean up and stuff, yeah, we would have to figure that out. And to take the docks out and put them in probably would be about $200. And we would need signage because we want people to know that those are city docks to enjoy. So to get more water access, it would be about, $22,000. Again, nothing that's really big, that's screaming, oh my gosh, what are you thinking? Because everybody needs a place to pause and ponder and play. And play is really important. Now, if we want to get really crazy and talk about money we don't have and dreams that are really big, we talked about that too. And so we just have one slide for that. And that is our crazy audacious bucket list of a city campground and a city marina at Voyager Park. And why we thought that would be a great idea is because we have private entities that provide this, but we do not have public ones that provide this. And before you'd ever jump into something like this, you'd need to know that, like Kiwani, Wisconsin, where my husband's fishing right now, their demographics are exactly the same as Pine City. And their marina, is what makes their city exist. So our demographics are good. But you wouldn't jump into either of these unless you had people say, I really want to do that, and I would promise 5 years at this price to do that. And then from there you could figure out, we have to go through, what do we need to do to make the marina at Voyager Park with all of the DNR requirements so that we're doing it right. And it would be a long process. But what if people said, I'd like that? Wouldn't it be great to have all the information about how you would start to do that? That's what our committee did. Now, you're not going to get that slide, but the city is. So that's our crazy, audacious bucket list, because all the other things that we did were like, yeah, we can do this. We needed to have something that was, a big dream. And so play and dream, very important for quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to our last presentation of the evening, and it is Community Pride. Community Pride is about public facilities, safety, and services. Its task was to define Pine City's brand related to the quality of community safety, schools, facilities, and social services, all supporting the community's health and well-being. And presenting is Christina LaFrance.
Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us tonight. It's been exciting.
Everybody hear me?
Okay. So myself, Jill Frith at the back of the room, and Danielle Davis here at the front of the room. We are Community Pride. Our quote tonight is from Henry Ford. Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. Our mission is to bring the community together by offering health, recreational, and educational opportunities for all ages and socioeconomic backgrounds. Our vision is to create a safe space for all to gather that inspires our youth, promotes wellness, and supports enrichment and fellowship. We have 7 guiding principles that lead us from today into the future. And we'd like to introduce you to a very big dream, Pine City Entertainment and Recreation Center. This is a central place to do life and a valuable asset to Pine City and the surrounding communities. There are 4 major benefits to a quality community recreation center. Number 1 is a positive impact on our youth. It has a stabilizing effect. As a safe outlet for energy and creativity, it instills discipline and teamwork via physical activities and sports, provides guidance, develops self-esteem and leadership skills via mentorship programs, and it's a refuge for at-risk youth, reducing juvenile delinquency and decreasing drug and alcohol use. Number 2, it promotes health and wellness, not only physically, but mentally with community outreach programs, MOPS clubs, cultural activities, dance and music, and nutritionally, reducing childhood obesity. We would offer a food pantry and educational programming. Number 3, it's an opportunity for education. Focusing on youth, we'd have tutoring, summer camps, mentorship programs. Adults, wouldn't it be great to have writing workshops, photography, scrapbooking clubs? And as a whole, we can target both groups with the computer lab, enrichment programs, life skills, peer groups, and arts and crafts. And fourth, it can revitalize and boost our economy by creating jobs, attracting new business, and sports tourism. Back in the spring of 2019, a Pine City Community Center Needs Evaluation Survey was conducted. There were 521 respondents from Pine City and the 7 surrounding areas. 84% of respondents said yes, we need a community center. 79% of respondents said we need a recreation and fitness center. And these are the programs that people would like to attend. Fitness and recreation being number 1, followed by health and wellness, art, cooking, music, tutoring, and language. And this is the demographic of age 60 and up. 51% indicated a high likelihood of attending senior-only education classes, and 20% somewhat likely. So we've developed this project as 2 phases. Phase 1, imagine walking in the door of our new community rec center. Here's a preview of how all the new spaces fit together. We would have a multi-purpose gymnasium, an indoor walking track. Studies show that adults under the age of 65 years old who regularly exercise save about $1,230 in medical costs annually. So let's offer our community a safe, warm place to walk during the winter months and during the rainy days of the summer. A fitness room. I would love to see some physical therapy come into this project if we can develop the right partnerships. A cardio room. A computer lab. 22.5% of households in Pine County do not have home internet services. Children's room. Recreation is just crucial during formative years, but it needs intentional instruction and support. Socialization opportunities are really just amazing building blocks for people to mature into healthy adults. Through recreation, children have new experiences, engage more fully in living, and develop a healthy lifestyle. We would also offer a senior lounge area. This would be a low-noise, safe, accessible space for seasoned adults to gather after walking around the track. And in our thriving art community, an art function room is just a necessary space to cultivate opportunities for exploration and expression through arts and culture. We would have a conference/banquet room on a blueprint that we have available. This space could conceptually hold 194 people, so we can have quite the gatherings here. Also a kitchenette and a food pantry. Batting cages. A mini golf area. A rock wall for adults and children, and a kids' play place. At this point, I have about 10 additional minutes of content to cover, but I would like to give you the opportunity to let me know if you'd like to learn more. And you can do that by giving me a show of hands. Oh wow, you guys are rock stars. Awesome, thank you. So next we'll talk about sustainability. One of the things that survey in 2019 had mentioned, it shows an overwhelming amount of respondents would have a willingness to pay for room rentals, and all of these costs would go right back into the community center as revenue. Concessions can turn a profit up to 94%, and we would have a kitchenette available for catered meetings and gatherings as another revenue source. Sponsorship is going to be very important. This is, businesses can make tax-deductible donations to a scholarship fund so that we're not excluding anybody based on income. So low-income people who meet those parameters can still go to our community center and enjoy the area. And there would be tiered levels of reward. It could be the name of a sponsor on a t-shirt, a sponsor's logo on a banner up in the gymnasium, a logo and website link on the city recreation website. Also, developing partnerships will be very important in this process. So we would like to team up with Parks and Rec, Pine County Public Health, the school district, Pine Tech, the Greater Pine Area Endowment, any athletic associations, numerous. There would be memberships for those who aren't excluded based on financial factors. We could do some merchandising. In our gymnasium space, we can host vendor expos and events. Wouldn't it be great to have a Pine County Home and Garden Expo? That'd be so fun. Joint ventures. I, for one, would like to have a Cabina coffee stand in the lobby. They don't know about this. We could have fundraising events like summer carnivals in the gym, Halloween spooktaculars. One of the community centers, Shoreview, I believe, they do a kids' garage sale, which just adorable. So we did look at a couple of comparables. Perham Area Community Center. This is a city-owned building with city insurance, and their funding comes from 3 sources: a city's sales tax, state bonding, and fundraising pledges. Their total cost of their expansion and renovation, you can see here, is $15 million. And I would like to note this very special location has a population of 3,500 people, and they managed to raise $6.5 million in fundraising pledges. We have a contact in this city. Maybe he can tell us how they did that. But of note, their space is 107,000 more square foot than our proposal, so extravagantly more expensive. They have a 6-lane lap pool, therapy pool, field house, cycling studio, all kinds of stuff that we're not getting into. Wellview Wellness Center is comparable number 2 over in Mora. Their cost was $10.6 million, and again, their space is 30,000 plus more square footage than our proposed space. Their funding came from 3 sources as well: a contribution from First Light Health Systems, city money that was already allocated for a multi-purpose space, and a public school levy. So after looking at our comparables, we had to just pick a few locations that were possible, and we are not at all limited to these locations. They're just some examples that we came up with. Example site 1 is a new build site. It's 4.74 acres of city-owned property directly across from the high school, and it has room for additional amenities. This would be some hard land to develop, but it could be done. And a proposed blueprint for that area. Example site 2, we've already heard about once tonight. This is the Evergreen Square space, the old Pomida building, along with the Fairview Health Services site. This is a leased area, estimated $10,000 a month, but to be negotiated. Of note, we would be unable to host basketball tournaments in this space because it only allows for a recreational-sized basketball court. And this is a blueprint, which is also available out in the lobby with take-home prints if anyone's interested. A question did come up about the size of the walking track, what the distance is around it. And I haven't done the math, but it is 120 feet by 68 feet. So if anyone would like to figure that out for us. For funding, we propose that there be a dedicated fundraising committee for the project, collecting direct donations and legacy gifts. For those who are unfamiliar with that, people can commit to a donation as part of their will. We can encourage communities within our school district to participate in the funding of the build at an appropriate level to the size of the community. And then we also have a direct loan example. If we were to finance $5 million over 30 years at an interest rate of 5%, the annual payments would be $285,000 a year. If we divide that over a population of approximately 3,100, that breaks down to $92 annually per taxpayer, about 25 cents per day. This is just an example. This is a really exciting concept. A 0.5% city sales tax. This spreads the cost over a broader number of users who visit and shop in Pine City. So our $4 medium latte becomes a $4.02 medium latte. Our $12 lunch and beverage goes up by 6 cents. A $50 dinner for two goes up by 25 cents. And a spending spree of $100 at Walmart goes up to 50 cents. It goes up by 50 cents. And the really exciting thing about this is it's not just our community members that throw into this pot. It is every person who shops and comes to Pine City. So people who come to shop at Walmart from Hinckley, from Grantsburg, Wisconsin, and our cabin people who come up from the cities, everybody pays into this pot. So in 2024, if you see a vote for a city sales tax, please vote yes. So then we get to the very exciting phase two, now that we've got our basic amenities down. An outdoor splash pad. I've heard a lot of people want a pool. Thank you. And some outdoor fields. But we need your help. We do recommend this be a nonprofit collaboration with the board of directors. And we call to all citizens, civic organizations, and philanthropists in our community who feel this is a great opportunity for the Pine City we all know and love. Please get involved, create a buzz, talk to your city leaders, talk to the people who can really make a difference. Potential sponsors and partners, citizens with special skills such as grant filing consultants, fundraiser enthusiasts, local philanthropists, and private donors, let us hear from you. We have sign-out sheets out at our tables. Feel free to pick up that pen. Has everyone, and then here is a very shameless plug. If anyone's ever wanted a banquet room named after them, a gymnasium, or a building named after them, your generosity can be rewarded. I mentioned the sign-up sheets out at the tables. The following committees will be necessary to get this thing up and running. So if you have any interest, or you know someone who has an interest, let us know. We also have a potential donor interest sheet out there. Put down your name and contact info if you'd like to be contacted in the future. This is not something that will happen today or tomorrow or maybe even in the next couple of years, but hopefully someday. We can make this happen together, and as we know, if you build it, they will come.
Wow. I think before we get into some Q&A, for those who do have questions of any one of those committees, I think we just take a moment and just give all of these committees and all the hard work a big round of applause.
I would like to encourage the city council members. We already own where the old public beach used to be when I was a kid. And I would like to see some work done on that area where we clean that off, put in a dock, a bathroom, and let people actually stop there and enjoy the public beach on Cross Lake.
Thank you. Another? Christina?
This isn't actually a question, but I did forget to say, in our mock-up blueprint that was courtesy of Troy Hogue for the lease space, the estimated cost on that at this point is $1.6 million. So when you take in those comparables of 15 million and 10.6, we're looking at something much smaller. So I just wanted to put that in your idea, in your minds.
We have a very up-and-coming sport, pickleball, and I was really hoping to see any proposals of pickleball courts other than your long-term community center. I didn't see anything about that. And that might pair nicely with, you said you were thinking of being a Blue Zone community, which I'll come and discuss that with you later, but you know, that would pair well with that too.
Good suggestions.
I just want to mention the thing about having recreation center, especially a place to swim, is because with, like Blue Cross, there's a Silver Sneakers program. But I would like to swim because I have a lot of arthritis. And I don't know where I can go swim around here, especially in the winter time. But just getting access for seniors for exercise would be great.
Thank you. Thanks once again on behalf of the CAF committee. We want to thank the city staff and city council for this wonderful opportunity to allow the community to create a long-time vision for Pine City. And to assess some of the issues that currently exist, but more importantly, to imagine the future and all the fresh ideas and opportunities that can be created. To constructively plan for the current and future needs of the community, enabling the community not to just to recommend potential projects that impact the lives of residents and visitors, but to create new opportunities to continue the community engagement, the ongoing support, and the potential project funding. So once again, committee members, thank you so much for your dedication to this project. Your work is just outstanding. And once again, I'd like you to take a stand up, please, and